Yo, what's going on, everybody? This is Lazy Sports Headlines by Bedtime for Distracted Adults. I don't know. It's a working tagline. Who really knows? I'm Jay Leonard. Um, Once again, shout out to DT Keisha Rebel Media. Today we're gonna talk about football, like Lakers, Cowboys, and a little bit of baseball, maybe. I don't know. We'll see how I'm going to be going with that. But for right now, we're open for business. All right. So, COVID isn't the only bug that's been going around. As of yesterday, so is an injury bug. Nah, that was horrible. I don't even know why I tried that. I'm not proud of that line at all. But, let's go ahead and just talk about some of the people that have injuries, and it's a lot. And we're not talking about, just like two or three people. Like one day, we're talking about like 30 or something like that. I'm not even kidding. I think the number is at 25, in between 25 and 30. But I'm just going to go over some of the bigger names real fast, and then I'm not going to really talk about their impact. The biggest impact being made, besides the obvious, is to all of our fantasy teams, which are definitely wrecked right now. But there's Nick Bosa, I think they're suspecting a torn ACL. Solomon Thomas, Jimmy Garoppolo, Raheem Mostert, and that's all one team. That's all from the Niners. Shaquan Barkley, Shaquan Barkley. I'm not exactly sure what his first name is. Torn ACL. McCaffrey with the high ankle sprain. Drew Lock with a sprained AC joint, which I didn't. I mean, I guess that makes sense. That's the high part of the shoulder blade. There's like ligaments there, and it connects the high part, the acromion, to the what's it called, to the collarbone. I mean, you probably need that for throwing. But anyway, that's sprained. Devontae Adams, Tavon Young, Malik Hooker, and what seems like 155 more people. I don't know. All of our fantasy teams are kind of done right now, especially mine, because I have McCaffrey on it, and I have Chris Godwin on another one. But he's coming back. He had past concussion protocol, so that's good news for me. And not that this is about me, because it's not about me, except when Christian McCaffrey gets injured, and he's on your fantasy team. Anyway, oh, I forgot to mention Will Fuller is injured again. But, absolutely no one, especially nobody in Houston, is surprised about that. Because a strong gust of wind can give Will Fuller a bone bruise. Next thing you know, he's out for 8 weeks. I feel like he's questionable every week. I mean, just like I have him on. Okay, you know what? I'm gonna not go into Will Fuller fantasy football woes. But anyway, seriously, he's like questionable every week. Um, so Seahawks versus Patriots last night. It was a great game. Seahawks pulled it out 35-30. They stopped the run at the one, make sure that the Patriots didn't win. I watched most of this game. Yeah, I'm not gonna say anything that anyone else hasn't said. And like I said last week, I don't break down like game footage because I mean this is lazy sports, and I'm not here to break down why every tactical thing works. Mostly because I'm not a smart guy. I can't really tell you about, well, I can tell you about the basics and stuff like that, and probably a little bit more complicated things. But I'm not an analyst. So anyway, let's go into the basic parts of the game there. Cam Newton looks the best that I remember him looking. 397 yards. Interesting enough, they do a lot. And of course, we all knew that the Patriots are going to be an interesting, probably run heavy team, mostly because they don't have deep threats. They have a whole bunch of slot guys, but Cam Newton hasn't been entirely accurate his entire career. Cam Newton was known for a cannon arm, a little lackadaisical sometimes too, not very disciplined. But in his Belichick system now, basically the most disciplined team you could possibly be on. I expect that trend to change. The good thing about most of the pro athletes though is that a lot of them are coachable, even though it appears like they're not. So they tend to work well together, especially when you start winning games. So I expect Cam Newton to actually only get better from here. But the real part of the story is Russell Wilson doing more Russell Wilson like things and being just or just probably being the best quarterback in football today. And, you know, again, we all know what Russell Wilson is, and we all know how talented he is. and he's been saving Seattle's football team basically for 5 or 6 years now. But again, I do think the elevated play from Wilson will remain all year. Uh, Once again, it's not one of these things that's hard to tell. You know what something is if you see it all the time. Russell Wilson is consistent. Is consistently high play. Now, what I'm worried about though is the Seahawks offensive line, and of course the injury bug is striking them too. Because I know Bruce Irvin's out. That the defensive end. I know that they got another injury, but I can't remember who it is off the top of my head. So we'll see what's going to happen there. But I expect them. I mean, they're looking like early favorites to make it to the Super Bowl, and I don't know. I'm just gonna keep watching Seahawks stuff. Again, I'm not really gonna break it down. So Wilson had 5 touchdowns. Did anybody see like one of the first plays of the game where he threw a pass to Greg Olsen, who was wide open by himself? Greg Olsen put his hands up, and the ball just, I mean, right there, he just somehow missed it, whiffed that catch, and then it goes immediately into Devin McCourty's hands, pick six, and that's how the game started. That was crazy. So, I'm going to do this thing now. Sorry, the burp right there. Give me 1 second here. I'm going to do this thing now. I'm going to call it hit or miss. I really like the idea. I'm wrong a lot. And so I'm going to just kind of do what Colin Cowherd does on his show, where he says, things that we say are right and wrong. Because what you're going to find out as the weeks go on is I'm wrong a lot. And not just in sports. Basically everything I do in life. I'm wrong all the time. But not wrong about this. Let's start off with a hit. Cowboys. Now, I know what you're thinking just because they won. Like that's supposed to mean something here. Just because the Cowboys just pulled back this comeback and won doesn't mean that they aren't what I said they were last week. They're above average, and that's about it. If the Cowboys had a history of playing dominant football, or they had a history of making late drives and comeback wins, if they had a history of that, like dominant starts with dominant finishes, if they had a history of making or with few penalties and not making boneheaded plays, then we would all see this thing differently. But you can't have one outlier game of you coming back from 20 points down in the first quarter and expect that this is actually a great team. They're not great. And right now they're above average. We can call them good. They're above average. But mostly the most accurate thing to say about them is they are exactly what they were last year. And they haven't shown us that they're going to be anything else than what they were last year. Dak is still Dak. And I get it. Hey, he had 450 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and a passing touchdown, I think. But hey, did Dak did Dak make that comeback in the last drive from the 9-yard line like he needed to do last week to win? No. What they had was a miracle onside kick. And I'm talking about the Falcons players looked like they were scared of the ball to go jump on it. But they need a miracle. Great players, great teams don't need miracle onside kicks to win a game. But you know what else they also don't do? Great teams aren't down 20 points or 20-0 in their first quarter. So all I'm saying is, do you think that if Dallas had to pull off going from the 9-yard line, they would come back and have a miraculous win here? I'm just saying probably not, because you are what you prove that you are. And Dak and the Cowboys have proven to only be this. So I was a hit. I'm saying I'm right there because they still are slightly above average, and they're exactly what they've always have been. Also, let's take into account that the Falcons are also exactly what we think they are and what they have been. You know what they do and have a history of? Blowing leads. So I wasn't really wrong on Dak. There's above average. Nothing's changed. With that being said, pay Dak Prescott. Let's get this out of the way. Something I missed on, I didn't bring this up last week, but anybody that knows me knows how I feel about this. I missed on Anthony Davis just in this one particular scenario because I didn't think he was capable of alpha plays, especially clutch plays, that involved game-winning shots like there was in Game 2 of the Lakers-Nuggets series. Now, the Lakers did blow a 6-point lead with 2 minutes left, but you know what? I always thought of Anthony Davis as a 2, And now, I guess we could call him a 1A. I still think he's a 2, but you know what? He's making a step in the right direction, and a buzzer beater is a great way to start doing that. And by the way, no one's saying that Anthony Davis is not an elite talent. He is one, but is he a number one player on your team? Is he that kind of guy, that kind of talent? There really aren't a lot of those in the NBA. We might think there are. There's a lot of guys who are really good, but there aren't a lot of ones. For instance, Anthony Davis is not a 1. We're learning that Kawhi Leonard is not a 1. No one ever thought Paul George was a 1. Russell Westbrook is not a 1. Giannis is a 1. LeBron's a 1. James Harden is a 1. Guys like that are 1s. Chris Paul is still a 1. Now, I mean, he was maybe not today, but as far as his leadership goes and all that, I mean, it's passable for him to be a 1. So that's what I mean by that. Anyway, I'm just saying Anthony Davis right now is really benefiting from right place, right time. And before I can say, hey, you're an alpha dog, clutch player, you are a 1, you're just in the right place, right time with LeBron James. Miracles happen. All right, another thing I was a hit on. I'm just saying America was right. That's the hit. That's the thing we're hitting on there. America was right. We were right because it's possible to have sports among all this COVID crisis right now. And I think our sports leagues have done a great job despite the circumstances. I mean, we could even argue that our sports league have done a better job mitigating this thing than certain countries. I'm not going to say which one. It's an example. But I don't think, and I'm not talking about just quarantining players. I mean, these leagues have been able to still put on a good product on TV without fans, which to me kind of says something about the health of certain sports. I kind of miss the fans, but also people generally annoy me. So, and I'm not talking about just being around people annoying me. Looking at people sometimes annoys me. So, I'm enjoying it without all the annoying chants and tacky posters and kiss cams and that little background music they like to play. I mean, how many times are you going to hear tag team during a basketball game? And I'm tired of looking at kids doing Fortnite dances. So the way I see it, hey, this whole no fans thing is working out pretty good. America was right. We can pull it off with the sports. We're just going to go forward from there. That was my hit or miss. I'm a little rusty. I'm a little rusty at this thing, but don't worry, in a few weeks, I'm going to be spot on with it. Oh, speaking of Dallas, I'm just going to go back to this Cowboys thing real quick here. How last week I went over the last drive play-by-play? We're going to do the same thing here. So, the Cowboys got that onside kick, and then I guess we could say Dak drove them down the field to get within field goal range. But hey, check this out. So, it's an onside kick, and here's the play-by-play right now. Incomplete pass, Dak Prescott, and then 24-yard pass to the Atlanta 30. And then there's a 2-yard run by Ezekiel Elliott, injury timeout. No yard gain run by Elliott. Dak spikes the ball. Greg Zuerlein, 46-yard field goal. So going from the 9 with 2 minutes and 22 seconds left to going 24 yards in about 2 minutes, I wouldn't necessarily call that a miraculous last drive game-winning run right there. I wouldn't call that like an A-plus thing. You made it 24 yards. Good job, Dak. I mean, that's the least you could do. But hey, you got the job done, and that's all that matters. Pay that man. I'm not going to get into too many other games because I didn't really watch a lot of them. Hey, some of us don't have the red zone package, all right? Some of us just don't have it like that. But I did get a little bit of the Bengals-Browns game. And I know I said last week I wasn't going to watch that because it sounded horrible. And it wasn't that bad. Joe Burrow, he's ready. 61 passes. 61 pass attempts. And yeah, a rookie coming in there. okay, with no OTAs, no preseason, a rookie, and you're like, hey, we're gonna toss this thing 61 times. Just that by itself is impressive. Uh, Baker Mayfield had a good game. He's still not. He's again, Baker Mayfield's an average quarterback. He's not good, and that is not up for debate. That's not up for discussion. There is no way you can have weapons like Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, Kareem Hunt, Nick Chubb. You got all of those weapons, and like what you could 230 passing yards maybe. A lot of losses, a lot of underperforming. You win by 4 points to a rookie who threw 61 times with a horrible O line, and a historically dysfunctional franchise like the Bengals. And don't be wrong, the Browns are too, but the Browns are set up for more success. Their potential is way higher, and they're underachieving. And we all know this kind of stuff, so I'm not even gonna get back on that horse. But um, so the Cowboys also didn't have Tyron Smith in that last game. So I'm going to give them a tiny bit of slack. Their O-line's been good for years, but this year is not so much just because they're older. You got to pay people and all that. We're going to go into the Heat versus the Celtics series real quick here. Because I was noticing something, and again, I'm not going to really break it down. I'm recording this on the 21st before Game 4. So I don't even know if that game's today or not. So this is after the game 3. And what? Okay, here's what I noticed. The Heat are very, very comfortable, and the Celtics aren't finishing. And I, it's just one of those things to where I'm wondering what's exactly happening. So the Celtics are having a hard time finishing, trying to attack inside, and they're just not pulling it off. So the young players are it's not just that they're performing better, it's they're going out there with a new kind of confidence that I haven't really seen. You don't see young people really do this in the playoffs. But this series can be summed up with one word: underwhelming. There's no stars. And I love Jimmy Butler, but this series does lack that kind of flair. It doesn't ring must watch TV. It lacks, and because of that, just in the same way that I said that people weren't getting, they're not going to eviscerate Kawhi for that performance, and it's because they just don't care about him. Well, in this particular series, there's no person that's on that court right now that you just have to watch. So with that being said, I'm gonna tell you one thing that's kind of a dull take. Okay, this isn't like some hot take, and I think this is pretty obvious. The Celtics right now are playing like a 22-year-old Jay Leonard. They got a problem being in the zone and finishing. In the first two games, they were okay. So the first two games, the Heat were using a 2-3 zone. It was very effective. It kept the Celtics from getting too many shots on the outside. But what was the Celtics' response to this? I noticed in game 2, their response to it was playing a small ball lineup. It's like they went to the Houston Rockets school of a not a good idea basketball, and they came out and played a not good game with that idea. Because, how many times that actually worked out? It didn't. So, when you are playing against a zone in basketball, what's a really good, effective way to bust it? The first thing and easiest thing to do is make open shots. But, that doesn't always work, especially if you're like in high school. So, but most of us were inconsistent shooters back then anyway. So if you can't do that, how do you bust up a zone? You bust it up by pounding the lane. And a healthy serving of ball movement and misdirection can't hurt either. But if pounding the lane, if you are trying to get it inside, you drive the lane, you put pressure on the inside, you have to finish at the rim in order for that to work. And Celtics are out there like that. They're acting like they're just terrified of Bam, or I don't know. They're like the net might give them COVID or something. Who knows? The most consistent finisher on that team right now is Marcus Smart, and that's not good. Marcus Smart's a good player, solid defensively, but it's Jason Tatum should be the guys consistently finishing at the rim, and it just really hasn't been happening. In fact, during Game 3, I watched personally Jason Tatum and Daniel Tice miss 3 layups within the span of 30 seconds, which is pretty impressive. I mean, that's just pretty impressive for pro basketball players. And there's a narrative right now too. And again, this isn't. I personally don't think this is a hot take, but there's a narrative right now that the Heat are some super physically tough team, and that's mostly true. Their front court is tough and it is physical. But you know who I noticed who is not physical? The guards. So Kemba Walker has been struggling on offense, but when it comes to defense against the Heat, I mean, he's having his cake and eating it too, because I watched him physically bully Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero, and Dragic. And don't get me wrong, Dragic is having a great series, but he's just out there getting tossed around every 2 seconds. He's flopping like he's LeBron or Westbrook. Hey, don't give me that. Russell Westbrook is the biggest complainer and flopper in the league. Just, it is. So, so if I were to backups, here's what I do. But as I was saying earlier, the Heat look a little too comfortable. Guess who's way too comfortable right now? Duncan Robinson. Part of that is because young players adapt easier. So the young players, so there's no distractions, right? They don't have to worry about going out to clubs. They have chefs there making them food. You don't have to fly into a toxic environment. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to fly into to like Boston, or you don't have to fly these other places and be uncomfortable. So, I'm just saying, here's what I would do. If I was Brad Wanamaker or Grant Williams, I'd give Duncan Robinson a stiff, hard foul right across just right across the arm within the first 10 seconds to really set the tone. And that's the reason, because the young players normally don't produce as much, but in this playoffs there are. You don't have to fly 2 or 3 hours for a road game. You don't have established families, with 4 or 5 kids and a wife. You have people cooking your meals. You don't even have to be really independent. There's no extra temptation. You don't have to have your psyche crushed because you have to fly back into Cleveland again or Orlando. And don't at me. Cleveland sucks. I said last week, same thing this week. And so is Orlando. But at least it's a little bit warm. And if you're in Florida, you kind of suck by proxy. Unless you're Miami. That place is great. So there's no fans yelling or screaming or poking. There's not a million members of the press there right now in that bubble asking a whole bunch of questions because everything is in this super controlled environment. And so that's why I think these younger guys are having an easier time. They're producing more, and that's why they're way too comfortable. Duncan Robinson should not be this. He should not have this kind of confidence to go out there and think he's going to get any shot he wants. And the best way to make sure he doesn't feel that way is, and this isn't a dirty play, I'm just saying, the best way to make sure that he doesn't feel that way is to, just bump him a little bit harder when he's making that turn. Hey, if he's running off the ball and you're setting the screen, add a little extra mustard. Dijon, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes what makes him uncomfortable is a stiff, firm, hard slap or swipe right on the wrist, right when he gets the ball within 5 seconds of you or him entering the game. And when I say it like that, it sounds flagrant and egregious. But you know what the refs call that? It's a reaching foul. So, just throwing that out there. One more thing here. How's my time looking? I have so much stuff here. I gotta stop writing so much. All right. So, one of my friends, I won't name them publicly, but they asked me, when am I going to cover baseball? Anybody that knows me knows that, hey, when it's the playoffs, I'll watch baseball. It's fine. So, the short answer when I'm going to cover the playoffs is, when I'm going to cover baseball is, when are the playoffs? That's the answer. The product is boring. Look here, they've done a good job with their production and all that, and I appreciate the 60-game regular season, and I'm just saying they should do that all the time, because the baseball on TV is kind of boring, and 162 games is really way too much, but baseball in person, great. I love baseball in person. We can't really have that right now, but going to a baseball game is some of the best fun I've had at any sporting events. Did I say that correctly? Best fun. Some of the most fun I've ever had at any sporting events. San Diego Padre games are some of my favorites. Ole Miss softball is definitely one of my favorites. Probably the most fun I've ever had at any sporting events. But how can literally everything in our entire world evolve, but baseball, for some reason, thinks instant replay is way too complicated? And like flipping a bat somehow warrants somebody else on the other team throwing a 96 or 97-mile-an-hour fastball at your head. Like, don't even get me started on unwritten rules in baseball. It just seems like everything else can evolve besides baseball. Their all-star game decides who gets home field advantage in the World Series, which is the dumbest stipulation in sports. But why do you even play all of those games? We had the best record. It should at least count for something. Oh, but never mind that. We're baseball. And because we had some hyperbolic overreaction, we got our underwear in a bunch over one All-Star game that ended in a tie, we now add a different kind of swing to the World Series. Despite 162 games, if you win most of those, you should get home field advantage. Ah, baseball's so dumb sometimes. And, okay, you know what? Okay, you know what? Okay, I think I went off too far there. I'm just saying there's already too many games, there's already too many teams, and there's too many innings. The best thing we can do baseball to make it more digestible is less is more. Cut, cut, cut. Okay, 162 games in a season? Like, knock it down to 100. That sounds way better. Way more digestible. Oh, 9 innings? I think that's too much. Knock it down to 7. Why not? I mean, seriously, give me a reason. I mean, high school games are 7, I think. I don't know. I don't watch high school baseball. But knock it down to 7. I'm just saying these things are easy. I'd change how many times you could put a pitcher in the game. I'd say 3 pitching changes for those 7 innings. Bam. Now you don't have to put in like 5 or 6 of them. Look, if you are down 15-1, all right, I'm sorry. You put in a different pitcher, roll with it. If you use your third pitching change by the 4th inning, too bad. You know, this is a game, okay? We're talking about sports and competition. Figure it out. You know, I just don't know why in sports leagues we have things that can be fixed. And so if you do all this stuff to baseball, you'd be done in under 2 hours. You create a sense of urgency, especially with that pitcher thing. Just fix it, baseball. And I don't care about stats being affected. Some people are gonna be like, well, if it was only 7 innings instead of 9, stats are gonna be different. Well, we've had a steroid era, and minorities weren't even allowed to play until like the 50s. So all the stats before then, you're playing against carpenters and milkmen and engineers. Yeah, I'm just saying. You know, back if you're in the 1930s, a lot of those guys had day jobs, and maybe or maybe did not have shoes. Same thing. No, while we're here and talking about fixing sports leagues, I'm just bear with me. I'm gonna talk about the WNBA for a second. Just listen here. I promise it's good. Okay, same thing with the WNBA. Again, I don't watch the television product that much. I do sometimes, especially in the summers when like nothing's going on because I'm not watching baseball. So, but like in person, it's fine. On TV, meh. Once again, easy. Watch this. Lower the rim 4 inches. Yeah, go from 10 feet to 9 feet 8 inches. And don't give me that whole thing about like, oh, if men do it, then women can do it too. This is not about that because the ball isn't the same size and the 3-point line is also shorter. So it's all not uniform anyway. Just lower the goal. So that way we can see like Maya Moore and Elena Deladon start doing windmills and you can victimize people in the paint. Can you honestly tell me that you wouldn't watch a WNBA if there was 30% more windmills? 30, if we're talking about, 3 to 4 real good posterizing jams a game. You know what I'm saying? And maybe, we're talking about an increase of like 20 to 30 dunks a game. You mean to tell me if Brittany Griner, okay, runs down the court, if the rim is 4 inches shorter, and she's thinking to herself, I'm going to toss this thing off the backboard, 2-hand spike it. And you can tell me you wouldn't watch that? We'd all watch that, especially on television. It'll make it so much better. And I know, so someone will probably also be like, well, what if someone has a 7-footer on their team? Well, here's my response to that. Okay, tough luck. This is pro sports. Go find yourself a 7-footer then. Yao Ming was like 7'6", all right? Margot Didak, she played, I don't know how many years ago that was. Maybe two, I think she was 7'1", but she played like 20 years ago. She wasn't that good. Go find yourself a minute ball. I don't understand. Who cares? Like, that's a you problem. If you are worried about some unstoppable player on another team, that's a you problem. So, I'm just saying we don't give participation trophies in this business. And remember, pro sports is a business. So if you're worried about something being quote unquote unfair to some era 30 or 40 years ago, that's not the point here. Because that's short-sighted thinking. Because it's already designed to where you know what this is called? We're gonna call this sports socialism. Okay? Pro sports is a consumer-based business. All right, it's a product before it's a sport. And since like I don't know why this is the only acceptable form of socialism in America because it seems to be sports. But it's like everybody's okay with this whole like worst record. Oh, we get the first draft pick. Cool. Hey, more money in the bigger market. Well, let's have a salary cap. Give everybody a fair shot. Cool. Rookies can't pick their own team, so they're forced to work for some organization, no matter how bad it is. Cool. See, in real life, we would hate all of those things. And I'm just saying that everyone's for these kinds of rules until you need or everyone will be against it until you need an Andrew Luck or a Peyton Manning. And then all of these billionaires and team owners are like, oh yeah, we love this kind of idea of welfare. That's not a political statement. This is a business statement. If they're up to me, I just would do away with drafts. Keep the salary cap. You put a cap on how much a rookie can make, and then it's open season. Hey, if your team is good, it's not like you have space for a Zion Williamson. Was he gonna go to Golden State with no salary cap and sign for the league minimum? Probably not. You should be rewarded for organizational excellence, for competency. I'm just saying. Now, I don't really care either way. I am just I am just saying that I think these would make sports not just more interesting, but it creates a sense of urgency that would make the consumer product much better. It would make what we can watch and what we see much better, make the storylines much better. We'll all be more invested and we'll all be rewarded for it in the end. Okay? And also, I don't want to hear the integrity of the game excuse because we have media. We have media timeout so advertisers can plug whichever crappy movie is going to be coming out that we don't want to see anyway. It's going to be like, I don't know, like Home Alone 85 or something with Shia LaBeouf in it. Nobody wants to see that. So, and okay. I don't know why I wrote that line in there. So I'm just saying, let high school sports and let Pop Warner football worry about integrity of the game. This is pro sports. We haven't had integrity in decades. Fix it, baseball. No excuses. And that's my very succinct answer on when I'm covering baseball. So, just to recap the day, I don't hate Dak Prescott. And I'm saying pay him. Just, he's not an A plus or elite quarterback. The Cowboys are only slightly above average. Baseball is boring. All right? LeBron James and the Lakers are a good team. I want LeBron to win another championship. It's going to be awesome. Anthony Davis, still a 2 right now, but he's taking many more steps to working towards that 1 status. And the Heat way too comfortable. Somebody needs to slap Duncan Robinson right across the wrist. Make sure he gets uncomfortable. And remember, reaching fouls. Also the Celtics are their biggest weakness, 2-3 zone. All right, I think I covered enough stuff here today. I ran over a little bit, but oh yeah, like, subscribe, comment, whatever. And remember, like your sports, love your family. Make some good comments and stuff in there. And if you want me to actually look at something or answer something, I'll do that. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good rest of the night.